Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the Clean Slate podcast. My name is KD. I'm so glad that you've decided to join us today. I am letting you know right now, I think it's going to be a heavy one because I want to speak about court and divorce proceedings. I think it's important for us to go there because there's so much that comes into it. People tend to glorify divorce out there a lot, but they forget what it takes or all the details and all the costs that are associated with that. And when I'm talking about costs, I don't only mean financial costs, I mean emotionally, physically, spiritually, it costs you. So that's why I think this topic is important to speak about it. I think it's heavy. So I'm going to go into specifics about my particular story and my procedures, my proceedings, and how I went about it and how it cost me, because I think it's important for us to go into these details and for people to consider and to think twice before they go down that route. In the last episode, I had spoken about the fact that my ex was in the household and I was outside with my children trying to figure out, where to go and how to get back into our house. And when I contacted the lawyer spoke to me about what are the next steps. I wanted to go back in the house, but I didn't want my ex to be there. And I don't know if some of you know this, but whenever you're separated, you do not have to be in two different houses. You do not have to be physically separated in order to be legally separated. You live in the same house and still be separated. The only factor is that you have to agree on the separation date. Now, the issue is that if you don't agree on the separation date and you don't have proof of that, you can't provide proof of that, it's really difficult for you to have something to give to the judge. And there are three reasons why people can get a divorce in Canada. One of them is for abuse. The second is for adultery. And the third is after a year of separation, a couple can get a divorce. The two first ones that I said, abuse and adultery, those are very difficult. The threshold is really high. So it's difficult to go down that route if you don't have a significant amount of proof, which I did not have. I couldn't go the other route. I had to be separated for at least a year. My issue is that I did not want to be separated and living in the same household as my ex, and I wanted him to be out. So my lawyer told me that I had to submit a motion, an emergency motion, in order for the judge to see us right away. And that motion was going to cost us, just the motion was going to cost us $6,500 just for the motion. I had just started working with this lawyer. I had to pay her a significant amount already per hour. But the motion itself, because it was an emergency motion and the courts want you to fix your issue outside of the courts and not have to go through that route. So it costs money when you have to go and bother a judge for your situation. And not only did we have to pay, did I have to pay $6,500 to ask for the motion, but I actually had to prove that there was abuse in my marriage. I was afraid for my safety, and there had been all sorts of abuse, financial abuse, emotional abuse, physical abuse, verbal abuse. There was a few different ranges of abuse. I had never filed a police report. The first time that I filed a police report was when I left the house. I had connected with one of my friends who works for the police. He had actually opened his house for me and my children to stay there for a while, and he's contacted the police for me. I filed a report, and the police officers told me right there and then, because you never filed a report before, it's your word against his. So there's not much that the police could do. They couldn't kick him out of his own house. He had the right to stay there. I had to choose to either go back and deal with the consequences or stay out and figure it out. So when my lawyer told me I have to prove that there was abuse, she asked me, do you have any sort of proofs, anything that you could show us, that you could show the judge to show that you have serious concerns for your safety, for your children's safety? And I kid you not, the only thing that saved me in this situation is that I write everything down on my phone. I have years and years of, like, I have emails before I had started with emails. I have years of just notes. I have voice recordings, but mainly notes and text messages. I never erased my text messages, which is an issue. But because I had never erased my text messages, especially with my ex, I had all of our text messages from years and years. And, I'm gonna just pause here to address people that are facing abuse, and there's all sorts of abuse. I don't think that any of it is okay, because it really affects. It really affects people, and it affects children. If you haven't filed a police report, and I'm not saying that because I want to put you in any sort of danger or anything like that, but you have to have something. You have to literally build your own case because nobody else is going to help you. You have to have proof. Like, when it comes to the law and the eyes of the law, if you don't have proof, you have nothing. Your word against his is not enough. You can try, witness testimonies, but it's really, really difficult. You have to have proof. My saving grace is that I never erased my text messages, my text conversations. So I had to go through 2,500 pages of text messages for 3 days to copy paste all the times that he was verbally abusive towards me, or that there was proof that he was abusive, or that he had physically assaulted me. I had to go through all of my text messages from years ago. And if I had asked the lawyer, then I would have paid the lawyer that amount, and that would have taken hours and hours. So I stayed awake for days looking through all of my messages to try and copy paste everything that I could find that showed any sort of abuse, verbal abuse, physical abuse, or anything like that. And that's what the lawyer used to go in front of the judge. When we went in front of the judge, he asked the judge if we could stay in the same house. And my lawyer had reiterated that I had serious concerns for my safety. So then the judge asked me, because his financial situation was detrimental, the judge asked me if I would be open to pay part of or all of his rent if he found another place somewhere else. The judge asked me to consider that. And then the judge didn't even give us an answer right away. She said she's going to think about it. She's going to read on all of the notes, and she will give us an answer the following day. The judge had tried to make us work it out, and she told us both, if you guys don't work it out, you will not be satisfied with the result. But the judge went, she read through the text messages, and that's where she gave me reason. Essentially, I won the motion, and I was able to go back in the house with my children. I got a restraining order against my ex, so he wasn't able to approach me, in order for me to make sure that I'm safe and that my children are safe, and that he wasn't going to retaliate for me bringing things that far, because I had never done that before. I needed to protect myself. There was a reasonable concern there for the judge to give me reason in this case because of the proof that I had provided. But if you don't have anything, you're on your own, and nobody's going to defend your case or fight for you more than you. So if you're going through things, you need proof. So the divorce proceedings is very heavy because there's a preliminary stage where you guys kind of go in front of the judge. The judge hears the case out and you explain your situation. And really that preliminary stage was just for the judge to hear you and kind of make recommendations. But it's really hands off. But every time you go in front of the judge, that's an extra cost because the lawyer has to prepare a special form, special paper. Whatever time they spend on preparing that documentation, it costs. And so you have to pay them per hour. I had to go through my entire life story, my entire marriage, all the times that I was verbally abused, physically abused, financially abused. Try to be as specific in terms of dates. My financials were all out in the open. Nothing stays hidden. Once you go through the court proceedings, everything is out in the open. At the beginning, I did not want to ask anybody to take sides, but eventually they have to, because you ask them to testify on your behalf, and that means it's against the other person. And everybody had to take a side. His family had to take his side, and my family has to take my side. It's just an ugly process because nothing stays hidden. The courts and the judges and the lawyers have a hand in your personal business. It's all out in the open. You have to talk about everything that you own, everything that you have. You have to talk about all of your assets. You have to talk about your retirement funds. Everything is on the table, and everything is on the table for all of those assets to be split into. The children as well are a big factor. The children will get their own lawyer. Sometimes they'll get psychological assessments. If they're a certain age, the children get to choose which parent they want to go with. And oftentimes in these proceedings, if there's manipulation or talk between the parents and the children, and they're not well intentioned, the children can serve as a bargaining chip. It's really an ugly proceeding. The whole thing is an ugly proceeding. And even if you started off where you wanted to resolve things amicably, because you have to prove everything, because you have to go into the depth of all of your personal life, everything that was said is calculated, everything that was done is calculated, everything that's ever happened is now being assessed, evaluated, analyzed for the best case scenario. And the truth is, other people are deciding for you. Once you go down that process, other people are deciding for you. The only way you can resolve this is if both parties decide to come to an agreement and they agree with that. And to be honest, this was my objective from the beginning, because when I had contacted the lawyer and I had asked for him to leave the house, I had requested to have an agreement where we could sign just us both. But every time that I sent the agreement out, he never agreed. I didn't ask for anything. I gave him everything he wanted. I just wanted to go my own way and him his own way. I had tried to settle things outside of the courts, but he just was not open to that. Every time he would find a reason to not accept. The other party in this proceedings might decide that they're going to drag this and they're going to find reasons to drag it. And really, the truth is, you can find anything as a reason to drag this proceedings. And the courts will, because the courts wants to encourage you to fix it outside of the court system, they won't push the other party to settle this. They will as much as possible try to let you guys figure it out. And sometimes, not sometimes, most of the times, if it's dragging out, you come to a point where you're just desperate. You just want to be done with this procedure. And so you're willing to lose everything. You're willing to lose everything, and it's draining. It's draining emotionally because it's taking most of your time. You're coming out of work to go to court, and you have to explain to your boss that you're going through this proceedings, and so you don't know when you're going to have a court date. You're extremely tired. You have to work more because you have to pay not only your lawyer, you have to pay for all the court proceedings and all the court procedures, all the documentation, and it costs thousands and thousands of dollars. You speak to your lawyer for 30 minutes on the phone, that's $150 or $175 right there just for having this conversation on the phone. You have questions, you're thinking twice if you should contact your lawyer or send an email to ask a question, because that will cost you financially. So you're working, like I had a decent job. I had a decent job and I had two other jobs that I was working, but you're working to pay for this proceedings, and you're exhausted, emotionally drained, because everybody is in your business telling you who you are, what you have to do, and you lose control of your situation because it's no longer in your hands, it's in the court's hands. And so I really had a difficult time emotionally, financially, physically, to deal with that. And I'm using my story as an example, but everybody's story is different. Everybody's proceedings are going to be different. But the end result is the same. It's going to cost you emotionally, financially, physically. It's going to cost you. And if you have children, it's going to cost them as well, because even when the courts try to stay out of your business, they get into it and the children get dragged into it. So everybody is paying for it. Even if you had friends, if you had common friends, it's a hard conversation to have with them, to ask them, can you testify for me? Can you do this for me? It's a difficult situation, it's a difficult ask, and it's a difficult position to put them in. Everything about that proceedings is extremely draining. And if you don't have any help, if you don't have any support, if you're not helping yourself heal and get better from that, it's going to affect you seriously, no matter what. No matter what the situation was or what you had to go through. And only 4% of couples go through the court proceedings, and they go through the preliminary phase, and then eventually it leads to trial, which is where we were heading. But by God's grace, we didn't go to that. And if you get the trial, that's another $30,000 right at the start. So this is where we were headed. We were headed to spend more and more money. Most people come to an agreement, but 4% of couples don't come to an agreement. And if you have to go all the way to trial, sometimes it could take years. It could take years for you to actually get a sentence, for you to actually get a final word, for you to actually get closure. It could take years for the case to be done. And that's years of your life, emotionally, financially, physically, that you're just dragged into and drained into these proceedings. So it's not a process that you should take lightly. And it's not a process that I took lightly. But the reason why I was willing to go all the way is because my situation was quite out of the ordinary. And if I did not go all the way, then I would always leave myself open for the other person to come back and say, hey, we're married. And so I would constantly be tied to this person for the rest of my life, unless I completely and legally separated myself from this person. And so for me, even if I came out of this and had no money, no house, and nothing left, as long as my name was no longer attached to this other person, I needed to do this, or I would be subjected to more manipulation in the future, or anything that this person would want to do if they changed their minds. But it didn't come to that, thankfully, and I'm grateful for that, and I'm grateful to God for that. But even throughout these proceedings, it caused grief in my household. It caused grief with my children. It caused me grief because I was working 3 jobs. I was inside and outside of the house trying to juggle everything that was happening. And it gravely impacted me as well. And that's where I really took the time to pray. That's where I really come to realize that I cannot do this if I do not submit to God. Because I couldn't do this. I was exhausted. I was exhausted from all of these proceedings. I was exhausted from my situation. I was looking left and right, and I could not see how to handle this. And even the pastors that I was speaking with from my church, they said, once you go through the court proceedings, we can't really have a hand on that because it's a legal proceedings. And it's true, you can't ask them to take a side. And so you're literally left to fend for yourself. You're left to fight for yourself, and nobody else is going to do it for you. The lawyers are not going to do it for you. Your friends are not going to do it for you. Your family's not going to do it for you. They're going to support you as much as they can, but the only person that can fight for you is God, and the only other person that can fight for you is you, and that's it. So you better know what you're fighting for. I really encountered God in that moment because I felt like I hit rock bottom. I was not going to go back to this marriage. I had recognized that, okay, it's not possible to live like that. It's not possible to live in an environment like that. And my children, even as we went back into the household, I realized how much they were affected because things happened in my house even after he was no longer there. Things happened with my children in my house that I recognize came from the choices I made from staying. I'm not encouraging people to get a divorce, but a lot of people say we were staying for the children. Your children know when it's not going well in your household. They know when you guys are hostile to each other. They know and they feel when it's not going well, and it affects them. Like if it's a toxic environment, an environment of abuse, and you stay for the children, they are living that abuse. They know that you're living that abuse, and they are living that abuse. And it took an event with my son. My eldest son ended up leaving the house, and it wasn't an ugly way. It wasn't a difficult way. It was difficult for me because I just spent all this money and paid all this cost going to court to try to go back to my house thinking, oh, it's gonna go better now. But it went worse because all the aftermath of the abuse and what had been going on, while it was left on me to deal with, on me to look at myself, and on me to look at how it was with my children. My son was not doing well in this aftermath, and I think he was really upset at me because of the choices that I had made. And so I was having issues with my son after my ex left. After he left the house, because he ended up leaving the house, and in a gruesome way, I saw that I was hitting rock bottom. I saw the detriment in my life, and that I was not able to do this on my own. I immediately, as my son left the house, he doesn't know that, but as my son left the house, I went back into my house. I put a cover on the floor. I took the covers that were on my bed, I put it on the floor. I put myself on the floor, and I started fasting for 3 days straight. That's what I did at that point, because I was so wrecked. I was so destroyed from the years I had put into a broken marriage, the years I had put into not dealing with my brokenness and not dealing with the stuff that had affected me from the get-go. From months of spending money, working 3 jobs, trying to figure out how to drop my children to their activities, pick them up, go to work, go to my other job, do ministry at church, and still do everything while being wrecked from all this grief that I was going through. And so I started fasting for 3 days. And when I did, I recognized that I had a lot of things I had not dealt with, that my choices had affected my children. My choices had affected my life deeply, and that I could not go on if God wasn't at the center of it all. That whatever I had pouring into my body, the shows I was watching, the music I was listening to, or anything that was surrounding me, I needed to change that. And I really made a decision right there and then. I'm no longer living my life the way I want to. I'm living my life the way God intended it to be. After I did that fast, I went to look for help. I went to look for therapists. I found two. I asked for advice. I asked for people to help me. I asked for my family to help me. And I asked for help because it was a heavy process. And it's that presence and that help that helped me come to make difficult decisions. Essentially, once you get a divorce, you have to sell assets. You have to split them because in Canada, if you are married, everything that you own, your spouse owns 50%. He wanted me to pay him spousal support because he wasn't working. And so there's a lot that comes into that proceedings. And so you have to ask questions. Don't stay in your ignorance. You have to have proof and, ask around. If you're going through some difficult times, don't just close your eyes and think, okay, I'm going to be okay. God is a great God and he will deliver you and he will provide for you. And I think that he did send a provision for me because he's the reason why I never deleted these text messages. If you feel something and you feel that what you're going through is not normal, go ask for help. And I'm not saying go straight to a lawyer, but go ask for help. I recognize that there was a lot of things that I had not dealt with from childhood that were reflecting in my decision making in my marriage years later, things that I had not dealt with. And we all come with baggage, but we have to deal with these things because they will affect our decision making. They will affect our lives and they will affect our children if we have some eventually. So ask for help. Ask for help. And there are some resources in your surroundings. And if you think it's not worth paying money for these resources, think again. Because if you find yourself on the side of the road, like going crazy or wherever it is that you find yourself in a hole and you're like, what is going on with my life? That money you would have paid for the therapist, that money you would have paid for even legal advice, just to ask questions, that money you would have paid for someone to help you, that would have been worth it because you might have not found yourself in that hole that you are in right now. Ignorance is not bliss. It's not bliss. You have to get informed. And so this is why I wanted to share this experience with you because, like I said, I'm not glorifying divorce. I want you to know the costs. I want you to know what it costs me. And on the flip side, if you're able to provide help, do not stay silent. Do not lift your hand and wash your hand and say, this is not my problem. They're going to figure it out. I want to end this episode with the story of the woman from Samaria in the Bible. It's in John 4. If you want to go and read it, I encourage you to do so. But that woman essentially it's a woman that goes to a well and she encounters Jesus Christ at the well. Like Jesus asks her for a drink. And as he's asking her for a drink, they start to have a conversation. And Jesus offers her to have the drink of life, where she will never be thirsty again. And she's like, give me of that water. Give me of that water of life where I will never be thirsty again. And Jesus asks her to go get her husband. And she says, I don't have a husband. And Jesus responds, you're right, because the man that you're with is not your husband, and you've had 5 more husbands before him. She ends up believing in Jesus. But at the end of the story, she goes back to her town and she tells everybody, look at someone that told me everything I ever did. And in our community, we tend to have a look of disgust towards people that have a past, that have done things, that have gone through things. And this woman knew what she had done. And she's probably lived her life with people knowing what she had done and looking at her in a certain way for what she had done. She was at the well at a time where it's not a typical time to be at a well. probably because everybody knew that knew her shame. And I recognize that shame because I spoke to you about it from the beginning of this podcast. But here she was having someone that saw her, that saw what she's done, that saw her past and still forgave her, gave her an opportunity to repent, to find Christ. And I believe that this is how we should be as a community. This is what our churches should be. Churches should not be a place where broken people come and they don't know where to find help. Like the brokenhearted, the sick, and the people that are feeling alone, the depressed, that's the first place where they should come, to church. That's the type of community we should be. And in that story, that woman that had 5 husbands, that was still in a relationship where she did not belong, Jesus still gave her an opportunity to turn back around, to repent and to accept him. This story is a reflection of who God is, of the God that we serve. The church should be a reflection of who God is, of the God that we serve. There's a lot of things that we're going to go through. Everybody goes through different situations, but the first place where people should find help is a church. In my situation, I've made a lot of decisions in my life, throughout my life, that brought me where I am. And I am responsible for those decisions. But it's important that as a community, we are open to each other, because we're not a perfect people. And when Christ came back on the earth, he didn't come back for the perfect people. He came for the sick and the brokenhearted. He came to change our perspective. And I hope that through this podcast, you change your perspective about how you can help people. Don't stay in your shame to hide from everyone else what you're going through. What you're going through is not who you are. It doesn't define you. Your past doesn't define you. My past doesn't define me. And it took me a long time to even recognize that. And so by being able to share your humanity with someone else, by being able to accept someone else's humanity, not because you accept their sin or not because you agree or concur with the sin, but by accepting someone's humanity and being forgiving for that, you can change their lives, you can change their perspective, and you can save them. And that's what Jesus did in that story. So I wanted to end this episode with this story to encourage you to be more open. If you see someone that's broken, or if you see someone that's going through something, it's okay to provide an opening. It's okay for the church to be the #1 place to do that, because people need that. We need that as a community. And if we help each other out like that, the enemy has less say in spreading lies into our heads and making us think we're the problem. And it's never going to change, because it can change, and it will change if we all put ourselves together to be a part of that change. So I want to encourage you, it's never too late to have your clean slate. I hope that this episode blessed you. Don't forget to subscribe if this is relatable to you, or if this is touching you. It's never too late to start with your clean slate. God bless.